right, everybody, welcome in. I have Frank Mir, a former UFC champ, two-time, right?
It was twice.
Twice UFC champ. We have a lot to cover, so we're going to be trying to dive right into this. But first of all, we want to talk about this freedom fight, how you got involved. It's in Miami, March 19th. Tell me how you got involved with that.
Well, it was probably about 2 years ago that I started having more of an affinity towards wanting to speak politically or be involved because of the things I was seeing going on in the country. And in the past, I was probably like every other athlete that made our money off of entertainment and was told by the people above me, hey, be careful what you say. You don't really get the same platform other people have. You can, be cut. And so I always kind of lived by that rules. Like, all right, well, hey, I can see a lot of screwed up, things in the world, but I got to feed my kids first, And so I think that's kind of the attitude I think a lot of our professional athletes have taken. And I understand it. I was one of them. And so I got to meet Harrison Rogers in an event. And it was meeting some of the people in the political world. We were at a soccer match here at the T-Mobile Arena, and we started talking. And we basically had the same kind of thoughts and processes of like what was going on. Never really interested in before because we felt we were kind of helpless, and that started the motivation to actually, well, not the motivation, but it started a path to trying to figure out how I could help. And Harrison wanted to start a PAC. From there, we were thinking about different ways to do interesting fundraisers. And one thing that always struck me is that, this war we have with the left versus the right, I think the right's losing, far and beyond. And I think that's because it's a culture war. And I think we're losing the culture. If you think about like Hollywood, education, even our sports are all left leaning and they're very much into that culture. So if you're a young child and you admire a certain professor or you admire a certain athlete, because of what they can do in their field, you start looking at how they talk about things, what their opinions are. Of course, and you start becoming indoctrinated at a very young age that, that's the right way to do things. This is the way to think. We don't have too many heroes on the right side that I think young children look up to, barring the military. I think that's one area that we still pretty much readily own. And those heroes obviously are admired and follow much more of a conservative mind approach. So I was sitting around and talking, and I never really meet too many fighters that are left-leaning. Almost all of us are very conservative, right-leaning guys because, it's kind of the nature of the beast. We live in a very brutal world on the mat or in the ring and the cage. And we see that you're only worth what you have, your performance is tested every minute. And so, nothing's handed out to you and just, and nothing's given to the other guy to try to make it even, It's like, no, if you work hard, I have an advantage on you. It's just the way it's going to be, and the people are born with advantages. We see it. Well, how are you going to overcome it? What are you going to do? So when I was talking to Harrison about things, it was like, oh, let's do a fight. Now that was a great idea. At first I thought it was just as far as a fundraiser to do the Restore Freedom fight that we're doing, or Fight for Freedom here March 19th in Miami. But I also want to showcase it in an area where athletes can be on there, not worry about what they have to say. That's why we're doing it on Clout Hub. We don't have to worry about anybody being censored. So I think a lot of these young men and women out here now in our country can look at these athletes and admire them, but now they can actually hear what they think about things, what their true opinions are. And then we can start developing a culture where people admire martial artists. I mean, look, how many movies that we make are about, the bad guy and the good guy, and they're going to have a showdown. It's a fisticuffs. People love martial arts. People love the UFC. And I think they love the athletes. And so, they just need a platform where people are going to allow them to speak their mind. And that's really what March 19th, more about freedom for me than just a fundraiser for a single night. And hopefully doing so more in the future is to give through Clout Hub an opportunity for these guys to be able to really speak their mind. So you can ask them, hey, what do you think? What do you really think about this? Or how do you feel about, what's going on, and let them have that ability to now present a different outlook so that when our young men and women are watching these guys, admiring them, seeing the hard work they put in and how strong they are mentally, physically, and spiritually. Well, what kind of person are they? What led them to this? What path are they on? And now they can join that path.
And just for those that might not be familiar with Clout Hub is a social media app. I would be broadcasting this live on there, but I'm still building my following there. So make sure that you head on over to Clout Hub. You can follow Frank Mir. You can also follow me there. And once we can build up a following over there, then then I don't have to mess around on these other platforms that you are watching me on right now.
And I still use them all too. I do too. I know I have to be more cognitive of what comes out of my mouth when I'm on this
Exactly.
platform.
I mean, and I'll tell you, Frank, like, but I would normally have like at least like 1 to 2,000 people watching these like live, and in all of a sudden I've been completely throttled. Like right now, it's like maybe 200. Now I do have like thousands of people come back and watch the replays, but it's insane that just because I shared the CDC milestone guidelines that they'd changed, like that the 2-year-old milestones are now now all of a sudden that's a 3-year-old milestone. And we won't go into why that is. I'm sure you can figure it out. But because I made the connection of why that might be, why the CDC is changing those milestones, Facebook notified me that they were essentially going to shadow ban me. So trying to build that back up. In the meantime, thank you all for checking back on the page like actively as opposed to the notifications. But please, please, please consider getting on these alternative platforms like CloutHub so we can just speak freely and not have to worry about being shadow banned, and can, be more interactive. Now, something interesting that you said just before was just how you think that the right is losing. And I mean, there's some that would argue, no, I don't think so. I think we're winning. But we do need to be careful about like echo chambers and believing what we want. I do think that the left is so much more vicious. Now,
Yes, they go for the youth much more than we do.
exactly. And I don't want to, I always want to see things from both the left and the right point of view. I think that the right has also used cancel culture. Like, let's just be honest. I grew up and I remember my parents grew up conservative Christian home is where I grew up. And I remember them talking about like what stores we needed to ban because of this, or, not go to because of this, that, and the other. So, I mean, both sides do it, but what we're seeing on the left is just these vicious ad hominem attacks. Like all of a sudden, if somebody says the wrong thing, they're suddenly a racist or a white supremacist or a Nazi. I don't think we see that name calling as much from the right to the left. Am I deluded in thinking that? What do you think?
No, I agree with you. It's funny. In fact, I think it's actually backfiring on them a little bit. You think 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if someone screamed, "Oh, you're a racist," people really like, "Well, hold on a second. Let me prove to you I'm not a racist right now. Or let me try to defend myself." I think now people like, the word is thrown around so much, misogynist, racist. It's like, is the person we just kind of like, I mean, hell, they were calling Larry Elders a racist. I'm like, wait a minute.
Exactly.
If you guys not have video on your phone, like you can Google the guy real quick, and I can kind of show you how that's kind of stupid that you're saying this right now.
I think they use the term like the new face of white supremacy is this black guy. Okay,
Yeah,
makes sense.
and even now, some of the names that they've been calling, outright and racist. I think they really stepped on a landmine in Joe Rogan. Joe just asks questions and he asks everybody. It's just a kind of, that's why it's such a great conversationalist. He sits there, asks questions, talks, feeds into. I don't think he really even comes with too much of a preconceived notion. It kind of eliminates himself a lot from the conversation, not telling, he might reaffirm or think, and if it draws the conversation in a direction or helps, move it on. But when I heard them starting to call him a racist and all around, I was like, guys, have you ever listened to Joe? Joe's more left than you guys. I mean, he hunts and eats meat. That's about the most conservative stuff.
Russell Brand right wing. Russell Brand they call right wing now just because he won't toe the narrative. I mean, I do think that in that sense they're losing because they're exposing themselves. I mean, you have our current president of the United States using that word like in context in a very vicious way. There's tons of videos of that, but nothing is ever said about that. And then the very people that were calling Joe Rogan a racist, you saw what do they call those? Well, basically those compilations put together of them doing the same thing. So it's absolutely asinine. Now, I did want to get into you feel like you were kind of mainstream, maybe leaning toward the left, but you were telling me a story, something about like a fire starting at your house. Can you tell me about that and like how that kind of opened your eyes to things?
Yeah, it's been actually, I think it'll be 2 years this June coming up. My father-in-law had 17 years ago now was diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. And the dude's a cowboy. They went in, they told him that like chemo and all this stuff. That basically he says, so I'm going to lose my hair. I'm not going to be able to have sex.
Oh wait, no, I'm talking about. I do want to get into that part, but talking about,
that's leading into this.
Sorry,
I'll be real fast. It ties into. So we had to have an event at his house. We can go into greater detail later, but so we're at his house. He's passing, and I'm sleeping on the couch. And my brother-in-law comes and wakes me up screaming and yelling. And this brother-in-law is a little bit of a jokester, a little bit of practical, and I don't like that kind of stuff. So I got up. I was a little angry at first, and then I realized that he wasn't kidding. The front of our house was completely on fire, and I looked outside, and there was two cypress trees that were 70 feet tall that were completely engulfed in flames. We're freaking out, trying to have it to where not move to the house itself. And so lo and behold, fire department gets there, they put the fire out, and probably about 3 or 4 days later, the police get back to us, to my mother-in-law, and explain to us that the reason why our house was targeted, that there was 4 other houses that were targeted, and the only correlation that they could try to figure out was all of the houses that were targeted had American flag posted outside. So it was and it's one of the cameras on the front caught some of the individuals, and they appeared to be young black males, 18 to 25, about 4 of them, and they were running around putting incinerant on these the trees or on the on their yards, trying to not really look like just more or less just kind of cause damage more than harm, because they never went directly on any of the homes, just their front yards. And that took me back a really bit. That was probably the turning moment, being like, wow, man, our country's really going down a dark path when the American flag, and I'm not talking, anything with less than the 50 stars or any Union Jack. I mean, the actual American flag is actually considered.
Typical, let's be very clear. The typical American flag
is a sign of racism now and oppression. I was blown away. It really, it shocked me. I guess I was late to the game. I didn't realize that. And so that's when I was like, all right, you know what? This is the world that I'm leaving for my children. We got to do something about this.
I mean, and how disrespectful to all our generations of those that have fought for that flag, our military, to suddenly just defame it. I mean, what's crazy is there's even athletes that have been pictured like with the flag around them, and then just a few years later they're saying it's a sign of oppression. It's just crazy. It's like,
I saw the one wrestler, the girl.
Yeah, I knew I saw that somewhere. I just couldn't place.
Yeah, no, you called it.
I couldn't believe it. Like, it's just like, wait a minute, this is you, and this is what you're saying now, really? It's just crazy what they get away with. So it is so important to be able to speak your mind. What is encouraging and inspiring is seeing so many people being more brave and speaking their mind. I wanted to get your impression, because this is, I think you probably, I'm guessing, seen this because it's made its round, but I wanted to get your impression on this.
Your thoughts on the whole Russia and Ukraine situation.
Here's my first thought is I'm not going nowhere to fight none of these wars for these politicians. I'm staying at home, and when the war comes to Arkansas, I will dig my boots in the ground and I will die for everything I love, and I will not retreat. If this country's invaded and everybody's saying, well, we gotta evacuate, we gotta leave, I will not. I will dig my boots in the Arkansas soil, and I will fight for the people that I love, for the land that I love, and the way of life that I love. But I'm not going overseas to fight. I don't know what's going on, to be honest, brother. I really don't. There's so much stuff, and I don't think nobody knows what's going on fully. There's been so much political corruption in that area. You got Biden and his son making a shit ton of money off of and using our tax dollars to bribe their people. That's treasonous, in my opinion. So you got Hunter Biden and his son using our tax dollars. Hey, if Ukrainian government, if you don't do this, we're taking your tax dollars. He shouldn't be giving our tax dollars to that country anyway. We got veterans out here sleeping on the street, and you're going to give our freaking tax dollars to these Ukrainians and all. Brother, I don't know what's going on over there, but I'm not going over there and fighting, and God bless anybody that's over there fighting, and I hope that the shit just gets solved. And man, I don't like war. You know what I mean? I don't want people dying and all that stuff. I don't want to be, but I don't know what's going on. There's so much stuff that I think that's corrupted that we just don't know what's truly going on over there. And I pray all those people are safe.
I mean, and that's the thing, and I think that's like the biggest thing that sticks out to me about what he's saying is I don't know what's going on over there. I mean, the mainstream media, which I came from, that has lost all credibility. Like, so we can't even know what, like he said numerous times, I don't know what's going on over there. What thoughts did you have about hearing him say that?
No, I thought he struck a chord perfectly true and speaks for what I think the majority of us actually are feeling and believing. That going over there and fighting a war for somebody else, we've done that too many times in our past in America. This isn't our battle. I mean, do I feel bad for the Ukrainians? Well, yeah, I feel bad for anybody being invaded. Can we supply them some arms? Sure. I mean, if we want to help out, keep neutral, but the whole system itself kind of blows my mind. Just the fact that we have NATO. I don't understand why we even have the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Like, what's the point of it anyways? That was for us to fight against USSR. I don't think they exist anymore. Last time I heard, it's Russia's. That was dissolved in '91. So this whole battle about they're going to become part of it, I'm like, I agree with him. I think there's so much to this. It makes it complicated. And one thing that always I find interesting is that if you look at right now, if you speak up in Russia and you talk about it the wrong way, they're saying they'll penalize a journalist, 15 years in prison. And so, what are they trying to do? They're cutting off social media. They're cutting off different information. And people go, oh, man, that's how it's in Russia. I'm like, well, yeah, but we start doing stuff like that here, too. We've started doing obviously the punishment is nowhere near America. Still, we're land of the free. So I don't think it's gotten to there. But the language is kind of similar. Obviously, it's not to the same, nowhere to the same degree. But, laying upon false information, it's like, well, wait a minute. Who's to decide what's false and what's not? Over there, if you go ahead and talk about there's a war going on in Ukraine, they'll say that's false information and they're going to imprison you. Here, you get banned or you get taken off sites because it's fact checking information. Even though, lo and behold, 12 months later, it's like, well, that wasn't so false, was it? 18 months later, it's just that, those who control it control the narrative. But our social media and stuff is controlled by the left. That's why they're able to do that. And that's why circling back, having other platforms out there like CloutHub could help alleviate this problem, because it's true. If Facebook wants to go ahead and take you off, it's a private company. They can do it. It doesn't fall under our First Amendment. I understand that, and it's kind of hard to battle against it. I get it. But I also said that, if a guy doesn't want to make a cake for somebody, it's his choice. He shouldn't have to make the cake. But I stay true to my words on both sides of it. You can't force a private company to go ahead and abide by certain things, within the realms of our civil, laws and liberties. And so watching that, I'm just like, hey, just be careful about what we're learning. You don't think they're doing to us what they're doing to them? Who knows what's really going on with the information that's being controlled?
I mean, and that's what's scary is you said we're still the land of the free and we're not like jailing people, but it's just like, we're getting pretty close. I mean, there has been plenty of cases of people that have been put in jail that are sitting in prison with no due process. And to hear, for me, having come from that traditional news world and see BBC come out and put out their statement when they were kicked out of Russia from reporting, basically, to have them put out a statement and be like, independent journalism is a humanitarian right, and pretend to care, to stick up for true journalism, which is allowing both sides to speak, allowing there to be dissent, after they've been right with CNN and everything else, all too willing to cheer on anyone that was kicked off or shadow banned or name called as far as misinformation. And like you said, so many times we were seeing that months later, now it's okay for them to say what we'd been saying for 2 years. So that's the trouble, is that even though it may not be as bad as Russia now, how dare we sit there and judge them for protecting against false information, because wow, that sounds quite familiar with what we're going through right now. Insane.
Yeah, I'm actually more of the point of, because how do you solve that? If people are giving out false information, can be misleading to people. I think you still can't control it. I feel that the First Amendment is a basis of thought that we should stick to, like, hey, freedom of speech. I would rather have that crazy guy on the side of on the neighborhood corner spouting off nonsense than have somebody censored. Let me go ahead and, does it make more work on my part? It does. I think I was talking to you about that. We're at CPAC. My buddy sent me a video of, it was somebody from the CDC speaking about, millions of dollars. It was like, I think it's, what is it? Veritas.
Cheers. Oh, Project Veritas. Okay.
Yes. And I was like, texting my buddies in the video. I'm like, hey man, is this real? Like, where can we validate it? You know, and so guess what? It cost me some extra work, but I'm glad the information wasn't censored. You know, so it's like, well, I got to look at things because obviously people can be misleading and shape things in a certain way. I've been in the entertainment world for 20 years. I've seen when people give a speech and you only cut a part of it. You go, hey, look what he said. I'm like, oh, dude, you got to watch the whole thing. That's not how he meant it. So I do agree that you can, but at the same time, I think information should not be censored, and let the, you know, put the onus on me as the viewer to go ahead and research it a little bit.
I think that they've really shot themselves in the foot with this whole concept because when you're aggressively shutting people down, it's just like inflames people's desire to look deeper into that. I mean, at least I know that it does for me. I've learned that if a fact checker is saying something's false, oh, there's a good chance there's a lot of truth in what. Then it just inspires me to look deeper and deeper into it, and it also is the very thing that sows the seeds of mistrust with everyone because it's like, why are they so adamant about me not even hearing this point of view? And so people there because of the lack of transparency is why we don't trust them. They're like, oh, they're now because of misinformation, people don't trust their doctors and people don't trust the hospitals. No, we don't trust you because you haven't been transparent. You haven't been straightforward, and you're so threatened by this point of view rather than just bringing the data, rather than just being open with the paperwork that you've used or the data that you've used to come to these conclusions. That's why we don't trust you.
I think the greatest example of that, where we were treated like children that can't think for ourselves, when Fauci came out and said, hey, the masks don't work, stop going out and buying masks, it's pointless, you know, and then he comes back a few months later and goes, well, I said that because I needed to have the masks available for our first responders because that's who needed it. So I was sitting there going, all right, right there, you already showed me your mentality. Mm-hmm. Your mentality is that whatever you deem is good for me or good for the group, you'll lie and mislead because you feel that the ends justify the means. How am I supposed to trust somebody like that ever? I'm not going to. I'm always going to sit there and go, well, you know, it's like you're the parent and you lied to me to get me to do something. And now the next time, like, well, now I'm telling you the truth. It really is this. I'm like, no, because you thought this was better for me. You made a decision and you didn't give me the information. You didn't treat me like an adult. You could have came out and said, hey, guys, masks work if that's what you think right now. And but right now, don't go out on a burn to go ahead and buy a bunch. We're going to go ahead and retain some. We're not going to sell them. I mean, how hard is that not to sell them to just the mainstream suppliers? We're only going to be distributing them to the hospitals for the P95. Everybody else, you can try to do this with your cloth masks at home and give the decision and give the information to me as an adult. If you lie to me once, so that's the only time you're ever going to do it now? That's the only time you're ever going to mislead me because you think you know what's best for me with the information you had. You had to make that decision. I don't buy that. That bothers me, and it bugs me to my core.
That's exactly why I couldn't do the traditional news concept anymore, because as soon as I saw that we were disrespecting our viewers so much to act as the gateway to truth, to be like, oh, yes, they're going to be too stupid to figure it out. So this is what we'll tell them, and we'll leave this out because they're too stupid. It's so disrespectful. I mean, journalism is supposed to be about serving your viewers and bringing them information that they're asking for, not saying, hang on a minute, I know you're too stupid to figure this out, so let me sort out what I can tell you, and then I'll bring it to you. I mean, it's so disrespectful, and it speaks exactly to what you're saying, being treated
it's not
like
information
kids.
sharing anymore. Now it's control.
Exactly.
That's what it was. It was control. You controlled my actions to the information you gave me.
Exactly. So tell me about what your impression was of CPAC. Was that the first time you'd been there?
Yeah, first time ever doing it. I was very impressed. Everybody was awesome. It was a great energy, a great group of people. It was fun. The only thing that actually kind of saddened me for a little bit, a couple of times, it happened probably about 30 times in the first day. And after about 5 or 10, I was like, that's kind of strange. People kept thanking me. Oh, thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you for speaking out, or somebody in your position. I was just sitting there going, why am I being thanked all the time? This is kind of strange, And then I realized, because people from, the entertainment world specifically or whatnot don't ever really come to and try to use their platform. I mean, obviously we have a few now that are doing so, but it's not the norm. And so that threw me. I kind of felt bad a little bit. Like, oh man, like this is a bad situation when, the right realizes that, there were certain groups of people that just aren't going to show up, almost kind of like, embarrassed to do so or don't want to put themselves out there because of the vigor of the violence or, the aggression of the left is going to come out and attack people.
Tell me about that. Have you gotten some blowback and like have people tried to defame you and talk bad about you since you have been on this side?
Not too bad because I still stay pretty okay about things. I don't think I take things too extreme. I just, luckily, I've just kind of dug my heels on a few topics where I'm like, all right, guys, I refuse to listen to anything other than that this is not right. Like the one that I think that I dig my heels in the hardest is the transgender. The fact that we're allowing male athletes to convert over to be able to compete against women. I'm like, there's no way that you can really think that this is okay. Well, they're women. No, they're not. They're not. They're trans. Like they're never going to be a cis woman. It's never going to happen. They were born with the wrong genitalia. I don't think we should take away their votes to right. They want to get rights to vote. They want to get married, have a family. You know what? That's all. That's social issues that really that's, hey, whatever you want to do in your household. I'm very much of a libertarian that way. You and everybody else agrees with that in your house. Yeah, cool. That's your house. I'll do what I want to do in my house. But for my daughter, who's going on to be a collegiate athlete this year, the idea that she might have to compete against somebody who used to be a man. Or a male, just blows my mind that this is even a topic of discussion. Like I just can't understand it. I'm like, there's no way that you can think this is okay. The kid from Penn State now who, I think had a top 8 qualification as a male, and now is getting ready to break Ledecky's Kay Ledecky's record. Here's a shoo-in to win nationals. There was one race he just did, and he was like 12 seconds ahead of second place. I'm like. But I want to retain my right.
But they're the same. I mean, they're totally the same. They're both exactly women. How dare you suggest otherwise?
Yeah, it's like look. I feel bad. You're born with the wrong mind in the body, whatever disorder that is. Scientists are better than doctors can explain that better than I. Obviously, not being a medical professional. Hey, if our medicine can fix whatever problems you have, that's fine. But we created female sports for female empowerment. I don't understand why the women's right groups are not more advocating this issue. My daughter can now compete because we created a pool where only the women compete against the women, so they can now have an even playing field. They can be competitive. And I don't really want to get drawn into any kind of like, well, men are. No, they're not. We're not equals. There's no world record on the male side that dwarfed by the female side. Name the sport. It just doesn't exist.
I mean, and these are the people that are like science. I mean, we're not even talking about the faith end of it or like the ideals of it or anything. Like we're just talking strictly about the science of it. I mean, you're
biology.
Talking about estrogen and you're talking about testosterone and you're talking about, the ability of muscle mass to build up. I mean, you can keep it completely scientific and explain, why. I mean, and it's really interesting
Absolutely.
that you bring that up about your daughter. I mean, your daughter and your son are both in these in fighting, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, that does give you
jiu-jitsu. My youngest son or my middle son just won state as a freshman.
Amazing.
Great wrestler too, powerful. He's bench pressed 315 pounds before his freshman year of high school started. We're still working to get to 200 on Bella. Bella's 2 years older. Bella is, she's strong, she's fit, she's a senior this year. She can't bench press 200 pounds, and no matter what I do to Cage, his bone structure, the size of his heart, his lungs, his hands, his feet, they're not going to go away. Can I make him more tired? If I change his chemical? Yeah, I can change him. I can make it to where he's not as fit as he is now. Can I reverse what puberty did to him compared to what it did to my daughter? Nope, can't happen. And that's two kids with pretty similar genetics in a weight room on a track. If they sprint right now, it's not even close, And my daughter beats up a lot of men, so she is a top percentage of females, but still, when you get her against a top percentage of the male side, it isn't going to happen, And as much as she hates it, it frustrates her. She wants it. I know she does, but just it is what it is. There's different biology here, and just to sit there and go, yes. But forget the science. Think about my emotions. If you don't let me compete as a former male, now as a woman, that means you really don't accept me all the way as a woman. And you're like, oh, you're absolutely right. It's a partial thing. I don't accept you as a full woman. You're not. You're not a full woman. I don't care. You're not. Go have birth. You can't give a baby, you know, and I'm not taking away from women that aren't born that way, because there are defects that absolutely a woman, but you were born with a penis. Like, that's not the criteria of what I consider a woman. Oh, she had a penis for the first 15 years of her life. I'm all, that's not a woman anymore. I mean, whatever names you want to call it, but you're not fully a woman.
Do you think that there's ever a way that we can find like some kind of middle ground or compromise? Like, does there need to be a separate league of some kind for transgender athletes, or is that just more segregation? I mean, like, is there a solution to this argument?
Not really, because here's the problem. I just read an article about the athlete at Penn, and hers, whatever, claim was there's no halfway. You either fully accept me as a woman or you don't. So they laid the gauntlet down. You're right. I don't fully accept you as a woman. I don't. You're not. You know, can I go ahead and give you the rights? You know, if you want to wear a dress and go into play, okay, put the dress on. If you want to marry a man and make it legally binding, okay, whatever. That guy made that decision. He's over 18 years of age. Cool. That's on him. You know what I mean? But, you know, for me to sit there and go, well, you're 100% a woman. You're not. So this 100% or not, I'm like, well, you're right. You fall short of 100%. You're not a woman. You know, and so to be able to compete against women, I just don't think should be allowed. I think that to save their feelings, because it's a small group of our population, to do so, to harm women's rights overall.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's what's crazy is you would think that more of the feminists would be standing up. I mean, they're like, we worked so hard and for so long to be treated equally as men and to break the glass ceiling. And then all of a sudden they're like, here, men, have all of the things, have all of the first places, have all the things that it makes no sense.
I was sad for my daughter when she was younger, because my daughter right off the bat showed a great prowess for athleticism. Every sport she played, she was a superstar, you know, super athlete, you know. And it was sad when she got old enough to realize, because she loves American football. And it got to a point where I'm like, well, you know, Bella, that's never going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I know that other parents tell their kids they can do whatever and they can amount to anything, but I think that you're lying to your child when you tell them that. If your kid has an IQ of 85 and you're telling him he's going to work for NASA, I hope he knows how to work a mop, you know, just the way that works, you know? And so I told my daughter, like, you're never going to be in the NFL. You're never going to really make money playing football if this is your aspiration. It's not going to happen. You know, it's just, you know, we can argue all day long, but it's not going to happen. And so all of a sudden, then Ronda Rousey started doing her thing. You know, female fight had been, obviously a thing, but it wasn't in the UFC yet. Ronda became a superstar. She became one of the highest paid athletes in mixed martial arts, man or woman. She finally showed that a woman could stand equal to a man, not necessarily in the cage, but as a performer, as an entertainer, as an athlete. We have all these issues with the women's soccer team doesn't make what the men's soccer team make. So, you know, WNBA doesn't make what the NBA. And now we're starting to turn a corner in the combat sports. It's like, no, more people are buying tickets to see her fight, so she makes more money. There wasn't some altruistic idea that Lorenzo and Dana had, like, we'll just pay this chick a bunch of money so we can make everybody feel happy. They don't think that way at all, trust me. They're like, oh, we're making a lot of money off this girl. Let's go ahead and give her a piece. And that's why she was so highly paid. So now my daughter goes and switches into fighting. I'm like, oh, if you want to be able to be on the same platform as a man, making money and calling shots and having records, here you go. And now this whole movement of accepting women into the collegiate sports and going on, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. They finally had their niche. They're standing toe to toe, winning and beating. And now you're going to take that away and go, well, this person now can come over as a man and come over and win as a woman. I'm like, this is crazy. No, what are you doing? You're ruining what we just already built so many years for feminists to accomplish.
Yeah, someone wrote in the comments, there's weight classes for a reason. I mean, I think that's such a good point and an analogy, because it's like, oh, well, I identify as a heavyweight. So I'm going to be with the heavyweights because that's what I identify as. I mean, like, how far are we going to take this?
Yeah, no, Mike Thomas, perfect example, dude. I use that all the time. If anybody hears me commentate a fight or the way I move on the ground, I really identify as a smaller person. My coaches and my friends have always made a joke my whole life that I'm a small man stuck in a large man's body. I admire the guard, a lot of the ways I fight, even my boxing, I box like a little guy. I like that kind of movements, right? So could you imagine if right now, it's a less biological argument to make that I identify as a 155-pound guy. How dare you tell me I'm not a lightweight? I really identify. Are you fat shaming me now? You're body shaming me? I'm really a small person. And so to not hurt my feelings so that I'm truly accepted as a lightweight, I get to go fight guys that weigh 100 pounds less than me. What kind? I mean, could there be a guy at 155 still beat me? Well, yeah, it's a fight. Catch me in a choke. Things can happen. What are the chances? Pretty slim. The percentages are really going to be in my favor. And that's the thing that non-athletes don't understand, is that it's all a percentage game. So the more the percentage is in my favor, the more times I could win. There's no guarantees, like there's no guarantees in life. But being a former male and switching over to female, you have really moved the percentages to winning on your favor drastically.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was a great point to bring up. Shifting to other ideas that you have that maybe would surprise people. I was kind of surprised about your thoughts on legal, I guess you would call it assisted suicide or euthanasia. And have you always felt that way?
Yes, I've always, I guess, see, there's where sometimes, I guess probably a less conservative viewpoint and more of a liberal viewpoint is I feel that we're more humane to dogs than we are to humans when it comes to the end of life. And I firmly believe that that as a human being, you deserve the rights to be able to call the shots, especially if you have a terminal disease, there's no coming back, and now your family, I'll be damned if I get something and I end up in a diaper and my wife's wiping my, it ain't happening. It's not happening, dude. It ain't
Yeah.
happening. And it's a shame that that's not just a truly understood, concept in our society. It would be like, hey guys, I only probably got 2 or 3 months left. I weigh 90 pounds. I don't want my children to have this as the last memories of me. We're going to have a great dinner. We're all going to hang out. And then I'm going to the hospital and they're going to go and take care of my last rites, and then I'm going to go out with some dignity. If my dog right now had it was wasted away with cancer and I had an IV in him and had a round the count service and he was in pain and couldn't even know where he was, you would tell me I was inhumane. You would be like, dude, what kind of dog owner are you? You're going to let your animals suffer like that? But if it's your uncle or your father or your son and they have some kind of terminally ill, wasted disease and they're just a shell of themselves and we're in their hospice now. We actually have, that's what hospice is. You put them in a hospital basically format where they just go ahead and try to make them comfortable while they slowly let nature take its course. And I'm blown away with people that, look, God's made his decision. That person's not coming back. I'm just saying, let's go ahead and expedite the situation so that person can suffer less. The family can have closure. And especially, I'm not saying I'm going to make this choice for somebody else, but I make that choice in all those circumstances. I think so. I think that should be completely something within my rights and not illegal.
Did that thought ever waver when your dad had expressed to you that he wanted to be in control of how he went out?
Yeah, it's funny. We actually there now. I'm gonna probably thank God it didn't go this way, so I can go ahead and admit to this now. So it was my father-in-law, and we've known each other, at that time about 5 years, and he was a phenomenal human being, and he was fit for 12 years of the cancer. You didn't know until it hit his bones, and then it was bad. At that moment, he was still probably about 5 years ago fighting his doctors to be able to have the right to, if it got to the point where they're saying where it's going to get to, that he would have that right. And so we kind of made a silent agreement with each other. Like, I didn't tell the family, he didn't tell anybody. I was like, hey, if it gets that bad, I'm going to need your help. And I'm like, I got you, man. I won't let you go out like that. And so luckily for me, the laws in California changed enough and adjusted to where he was able to have a end of life choice. And that's what he chose. And he chose it. It was, I know death is a very awkward topic for a lot of people. It's uncomfortable, but look, it's reality. We're all going to face it. Our loved ones are going to face it. And so he got to choose on his own terms when it got really bad, where he was no longer walking. We went out there. We all had, all 4 daughters and their husbands all sat there and my mother-in-law. And we got to enjoy a really great day with him. Like we pushed him around the wheelchair. Hey, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What do you want to eat? What do you want to drink? It was the craziest, I want this. And he'd have a sandwich of this. And then, I like an espresso right now. Okay. At 7 o'clock at night. Oh, hey, man, let's do whatever you want to do. What do you want to watch? And so we enjoyed our time together. And then at the end, when he said he was ready, he was ready. He gave me the, I'm ready. And so I went ahead and, and mixed up his drink for him. And then he went in and it was a very much more humanitarian by far, but it was like an honorable way. Instead of sitting there wasting away, having someone have to change your clothing because you're incontinent, like to sit there and be able to choose your terms. I got to see how a man faces death, and it really impressed me and blew me away. It wasn't somebody trying to escape any kind of pain of mental illness. It wasn't somebody trying to avoid, problems in their life. It was somebody that knew that, God had said, hey, you got a couple days left, and that's not how you wanted to spend them.
Now, I gotta imagine that had it been, I mean, obviously so emotional, but what a pivotal moment to see someone taking control of that decision, basically staring death in the face and being like, "Yep, I want to do this on my terms." Now, I know you shared with me that you're an atheist, but like, I can't imagine like,
I'm more agnostic now. I don't know what's out there.
okay, I can't exactly. But I can't imagine. Like, I can't imagine to a certain extent because obviously I grew up Christian, but then like in my 20s, I was
Yeah.
like, I'm such an analytical person. I mean, that's why I went into journalism. I'm like testing everything out. And I'm like, well, just because they say this doesn't mean this, So I kind of went on a journey, and so there was a time where I was like, I don't know if I buy all this.
Yeah.
And so I researched. That's what I do. I like to research. I ask questions, and then I was like, okay, yeah, now I see why this makes the most sense. But man, to have been in that situation and to see someone like on death's door, I feel like I would have been really thinking like, I better get this figured out. Did you have any moment like that?
Not so much like that, because again, because I have this very much of a mantra of like, I just don't know. There's all this
Mhm.
information out there, and I feel that, well, and here's the truth of the matter: nobody knows. That's why faith is involved in every decision you make, whether you want to go science or whether
Right.
you want to go religion. There's a certain amount of, well, it's faith. You're gonna have to make a call, and and I constantly say that even when my children go, "Hey, Dad, what happens when we die?" I'm like, I don't know. I haven't met anybody that's died yet and came back and tell me. So I think that just my thing is, I feel like if you live as a good person and I do things right, that whatever I see afterwards, hopefully they understand that I lived the best I could possibly, and did no harm to anybody around me, and tried to be actually an asset to society. So I guess I kind of almost live by Christian terms without actually accepting
Yeah.
fully. But hey, I like the philosophy and whatnot. And so anyways, so when it came down to it, not so much that where I'm like, oh, what's going to happen to my soul if I have a soul? I don't know. But I was so impressed because I actually broke down at the end when it was time to do it. I had a hard time. I walked into the bathroom, and my mother-in-law actually came up behind me to kind of give me strength. She put her hands on my shoulders, and I was bawling so profusely that I couldn't hold the bottles properly. I was settling them down so I wouldn't mix mess up the mixture. And so, I struggle with that. And so I just remember sitting there going like, hey man, if he can handle this, I have to be able to handle this. You know what I mean? Like, and so I walked in there and I just looked at him. I just remember thinking like, I'm very much into masculinity and being a man. I think that's, and I looked at him and I was like, I hope I face my day half as masculine, half as manly as this guy right here. Like, wow. He just grabbed the cup, swigged it back, no hesitation. He looked at me, and his only comment to me was, that tasted like shit. Wow. And then it's funny you talk about the afterlife because he was a very spiritual person. I don't know, he kind of was a little farther down the path than I am as far as like not knowing what's out there, but he goes, there's definitely something there, son. And that's when he was giving the last words to each of us in the room. And that was the ones to me. It was like, hey, I will be watching you. And that was his last words to me.
Wow, that's really cool. It's funny because when you get on topics of faith and spirituality, some of the resistance that you get is people saying like, I just can't believe in a God that, would allow bad things to happen. I just don't see enough good basically. And for me, it's like, when I came to terms with seeing all the evil in the world and the things that I've heard about that just don't make any sense, I feel like it was like the opposite for me. Like, there is no way that people can be this evil, this sick, this disgusting. Like, the world can be like this if there isn't an enemy. So for me, it was kind of backwards. Like, I just was like, there's no way you can explain just normal humanity and have like people like that, like have so much terrible evil that can happen, so much deception, whatever. So for me, it was kind of like the opposite logic, I guess you could say, because I still can't like explain it unless there's an active enemy that we're fighting that has control of this earth for a time, has dominion over it, which would be Satan and the demons and everything. Because I mean, that to me is like very obvious, that there is an evil element, and I've never seen it more than right now. So that, I mean, I don't know, I guess sharing an element that maybe you don't hear very often. But I appreciate your open-mindedness.
Well, no, and I hear people say what you're saying about like, well, this, why. There's so much information out there, right? And there's different faiths and different, the 3,000 different faiths and who's right, who's this, and variations. And you see people of certain faiths act a certain way. It's like, wow, I didn't think diddling little kids was part of that, doctrine, And so, you could point at all these things. And I've basically come to this conclusion. Whatever's out there is much smarter than I am, and I can't figure it out. And I'm not going to keep struggling to figure it out. I'm in a battle with myself, and what I know is what's to be true and what's to be right, what's to be wrong. And so I'm worrying on that battle, trying to worry about what's outside this ring or what's outside this universe. Because think about it. I've come to the conclusion that whatever's out there has to be something, because we just exist. Something had to create something that's outside of our understanding, outside of our universe. Hell, I don't understand a lot of things. How am I supposed to understand the creator of the universe? That just blows my mind, right? So I'm like, you know what? It'll be waiting for me when I pass. But I just go ahead and take the opportunity to be a better person every day. I try to be the man I want to be. When I wake up in the morning, I have an objective of what I want to be, and I fight all day long. And when I go to bed at night, I think about the losses I took and how I can go ahead and try to come back and win the next day. And that's what I think that I worry about. I'm kind of like a soldier in this big war. I don't know what the generals are deciding. I really don't. But I know the guy in front of me, that beast, that mean, that I got to slay. That's who I'm going after. Let the guys that are higher and smarter than me figure out the rest.
I think that's awesome. And I think that it's awesome that you have such an open mind about it. And you're like, maybe I'll figure something else out at some point. And that I'm
open information.
Same thing. I mean, it's nice to have the humility there, like the humble, like, I don't know, because it's like sometimes you get these conversations.
I wish that could be a faith.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes people like are angry and mean to like those that have faith. And so I appreciate
it a lot of times. I tell people of strong faith, I admire. I think that it can be a very like comforting feeling. I tell people, do you think I like the idea that I don't know what's going to happen when my children die? That scares the shit out of me. I hate it. I wish someone could give me some information to make me feel better about it, because right now I'm petrified. It scares me. Like, will I ever see my children again? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe that makes me live my life harder and stronger and more, righteous than others. Because, like, I think sometimes people are like, you think there's an afterlife, so you're kind of just, I just think this is it, maybe. So I'm going to make sure that I see my children as much as I can possibly see them, because I don't know what's going to happen. I really would like to think that there is something out there. But I tell people, like, you think I like the idea of not knowing? I see how happy people of faith are. I wish I had that brain too,
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So I know that we're we're getting close to running out of time. So let's talk about this freedom fight again. How's this going to work, and how can people watch? Break that down for me.
Oh, so if you're not in Miami March 19th, you don't want to come see it live. It'll be entertaining. We're going to have, it's Team Jackson, Quentin Jackson's versus Team Ortiz. Tito Ortiz is going to have two teams, and they're going to fight each other. And how they fight in each individual fighter, just like in life, has to do well. But how he does adds points to his team, whether he wins by finish or he wins by decision or barely wins by decision. And so then there'll be a winning team at the end of the night. Very akin to, if anybody watches, folk style wrestling, high school, college, very much like a duel match. And so we'll also be on Cloud Hub, be live. There'll be a paywall on it. I think it's $12.95. And so you'll be able to watch us and watch our inaugural.
So let me get this straight. Is it you and Tito kind of facing off because you each have your teams? Oh, it's not that. Okay.
Quentin Jackson is facing off with Tito Ortiz.
Gotcha.
As
okay.
Coaches. If I come on again, we have more time. I can break down the whole mentality I have of there has to be a role model, and he's leading on a group of young people going forth, and each one does their own thing, but it contributes to the team itself, and that's how I feel about society. I have to be as strong as I can possibly be, but my strength adds to the country around us, and all of us should think the same way.
That's a good point. So yes, people, if you've never heard of Clout Hub, make sure that you get on Clout Hub, and so that you can watch this freedom fight, so that we can I mean, gosh, it is like absolutely pathetic how much, especially even Facebook, is suppressing me right now. So I look forward to you
Yeah.
guys joining me on Clout Hub so that we can actually have true numbers up. I'm like rolling my eyes when I'm seeing like what I'm seeing right now. It's like so stupid. And it's so obvious. It's funny, like, because Facebook being that I have like the blue check mark will be like your engagement is down this week. Like, do another post. I'm like, my engagement is down because you were hiding my posts. Like, has nothing to do with what I'm posting. It's so silly. So make sure you get on Clout Hub, like, for some real interaction, and so you can actually see these posts and not have to and watch them live and not after the fact. But what other final thoughts do you want to share? Like about? Oh wait, we didn't get to talk about how inspiring you are as a fighter and as a person. So you had like an injury earlier in your career. People were saying like, oh, he's not even going to be able to do this anymore. And you just like kicked everyone's butt. Like, to kind of take me through what happened and your journey of like coming back.
I won the UFC heavyweight belt at the time. I was the youngest fighter to ever win the belt. I think I'm still the youngest heavyweight. John Jones beat my record, and my daughter's going to beat both of us. So,
Oh my gosh.
and so I bought a motorcycle. I was out riding, my brother and I. It was my wife and I had been married since 2003, but because of my fight schedule, we got married at the Little Chapel of the West. And like all little young girls, that was not her, her dream to, to have a little just, ceremony at the down by the strip, right? So I promised her that we'd have this big, all the bells and whistles wedding, and so it's 10 days before, just to get ready to leave town. And my brother is, he's like, "Hey man, let's go for one last ride before you go." I'm like, "Yeah, cool." So we jump on our bikes, we ride around, and I'll be honest, I rode like a dick. I have a little bit less frontal lobe restriction than other people. It allows me to have a lot of success in life as I do things that scares the hell out of other people. It doesn't scare me. And so as much. And so lo and behold, though, I was actually not driving like a dick. I had to get gas. So I was going through, I had my form on the gas tank. I told my brother that, and a guy ran a light. And so as we're going through the intersection, I saw him, and it just wasn't enough time to react. He hit me on the side. He broke my femur in half, dislocated my hip, ripped my knee, cut my toe off, which the doctor was able to reattach,
Wow.
and threw me 90 feet through the air. And unluckily, because of my sport, I never lost consciousness. I'm able to stay conscious through a lot of pain. So when I hit the ground, I remember just the impact of just being flooded. I tumbled well, so I didn't break my neck. Because when I went over the top, I rolled through it. I didn't, and so once that happened, my brother ran up to me, and the first thing I said to him was, "I get my gun," because I carry, and so I didn't know where my firearm had gone, because obviously that flew off, God knows where. And so it was a Glock though, so it held up. And so he comes back. He goes, "I got your gun. Your bike's over there. It's up. It's just, it doesn't look good." I'm like, "All right, cool." He goes, "Why aren't you getting up?" I'm like, "I don't know." I couldn't stand up. So like I had thrown up in my helmet. I got my helmet off now, and I'm like kind of like trying to rub the puke off my face. And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like, just give me a second. I'm sitting there, and like, a second turns into 5 minutes, and my body just won't sit up. I keep flexing my abs, and I'm trying to sit up, and my body just, it's shut down. And I didn't understand at the time, because my femur was snapped in half completely through. So I guess it was my body's way of trying to protect me. It shut me down. And so the paramedics show up, and sure enough, they're like, "Hey man, like, so what's up?" I'm like, "Hey," the guy recognized me. I just won the UFC.
Wow.
The guy's like, "Oh shit, it's Frank Mir." I'm like, "Hey buddy, what's up?" He was like, "What's going on?" I feel like I took a bad kick to the leg. That was the best way I could describe it. I was like, my sciatic nerve is just, I feel like I got a dead leg. And the guy's looking at me, and he looks up and he goes, "Hey, was one leg shorter than the other?" I was like, "Not that I was aware of." He's all, "Yeah, your femur's busted. Hold on." So I had to like cut off my clothes. They put me on my leg in a tourniquet, basically, or a traction, and they pulled my leg apart. And then I was making jokes the whole time. That's kind of how I handle my anxiety. I'm in a locker room. I'm that guy, just cracking joke after joke. Life is better if you laugh at it, right? Makes pain easier to deal with. And so, but then the guy goes, "Hey man," he goes, "I like your attitude right now." He goes, "But why don't you kind of control your breathing, because you're probably bleeding out. Your blood pressure is dropping." I was like, "Oh." And so then I was like, so I closed my eyes, and I just started meditating, just deep breaths, relax, try not to die before I get to the hospital. Just keep breathing slow my heart rate down. So lo and behold, they put an iron rod through my leg, and probably wasn't until about 6 weeks later when they came back and did an MRI, and the doctor's like, "All right, well, you tore your ACL, your PCL, you tore this, all through he goes, your hip luckily was only dislocated for about 30 minutes. So he goes, that's a good sign because I guess the hip doesn't get blood flow. So it had been dislocated for too long, And so he goes, when the paramedics moved you, the traction, that pain you felt, yeah, that was your hip relocating. I was like, oh, all right. And so the conversations went to what surgeries we're going to need to do so you can continue to walk normal. I was like, oh, like, when do you think I can fight again? There was like,
Oh
what
my
do you mean?
God.
You're never going to fight again. He didn't say it that. Well, I think right now, what did he say? He goes, I think you need to take your mindset more to having a functional, healthy life so you can play with your children.
Yeah.
Being a high level athlete might not be the course your life is going to go on anymore. I was like, oh. And yeah, that was a bad day. I remember I actually came home and I called my wife because she was out. And I was like, hey, and I couldn't finish the conversation. I was bawling so bad that I was choked up. So she came home. I was still stuck in the front of the house. I couldn't come in. I didn't want to see my children. I didn't want them to see me like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So they told me my career was over with. And so I struggled for about 18 months. I struggled bad with pain pill addiction. I struggled bad with alcoholism because of trying to dampen the pain and just try to figure out. And I was able to overcome it all. And that's actually, if you watch me come back and I won the title again, 4 years later, I became the heavyweight champ once again. And I beat what was a lot of people considered the best fighter in the world at the time. And I demolished him. I knocked him down the first 3 rounds. Second round, I finally stopped the fight. I ran through him. And so after the fight, I'm crying pretty badly. And that's why I cry. People are like, oh, the belt, it's a shiny piece of metal. But the path and the battles that I just fought to get here, that was a representation of me overcoming them,
So inspirational. I love that. I mean, that's one of the things that I said when I left traditional news is I was like, I want opportunities to tell good inspirational stories. So thank you for allowing me to share your story. It's so inspirational. So who should play you in the movie?
If my wife has any said, it'll be Ben Affleck.
Oh, Ben Affleck. Oh, he's the worst. She tell her she could do better than that for you.
Okay. I don't know who it is now. No one ever said that anymore. I remember when I was younger, it was always Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck, he's a good guy. That doesn't work. Smart guy, right?
I think he'll have a lot of.
He can do the drug and alcohol part. He'll understand.
Oh well, yeah. You got a point there. You got a point there. That's funny, but yeah, he would have to hit the gym hard for sure. Any final thoughts? I know I've kept you. Well, actually, we're right on time. So, any other thoughts that you wanted to share with us? I mean, we should do this again sometimes. I'm gonna get to see you actually.
Yes.
Like a week now? I'm gonna be at the fight there in Miami. We can do another live interview like in person or whatever. But any final thoughts that you want to share with the viewers? They're big fans of you.
Yeah, no. If anybody wants to reach out and ask questions, like, look, we're all a tribe. We're all trying to help each other have different strengths and weaknesses, and I think I've done pretty well as a martial artist and as a man, my masculinity, and as a father. And if anybody, ever wants help in those areas, I'm like, hey, my daughter and I are having this issue. I don't have all the answers, but I can just tell you what I did. And if it can help you in any way, by all means, I'd like to be able to help us all out. I just, all ships rise in the tide, right? So we're a group, and I wish more people thought that way.
Yes, me too. So make sure you get on Clout Hub, the social media app. You can follow Frank Mir. You can follow Tito Ortiz. You can follow me on there. Let's build our own community over there so that we can have more free conversations. But in the meantime, obviously, as I'm growing that community over there, I want to explain my hypocrisy here. The reason I'm on these platforms is because it's a process to, kind of get everybody over there. So please consider doing
the same
that.
thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll do this again. Fascinating to learn so many things about you. And we'll let you get about your day.
All right. Time to go training again.
All right. See ya. Let me see. I'm still bad at this. All right. Here we go. Bye-bye.